They voted me the boss up here.
Can get education. What, you know. Yeah, but well, that's the truth. Okay.
Dog news, for instance, that gives you the judging, the lists of the judges for 3 months ahead. And then you see in one, you come to the herding group. That's the only group we're here interested in, right, at this point. And you see Miss Canavan does that, Mr. Coen does that, and Miss Evan does the rest of the breed. And in there is Collie. When I see rest of the breed, I'm already put off. I think the AKC will take notice if you just don't enter at those shows. And just let the local people enter, the local people who have a pet at home. And all of a sudden the AKC will say, why is the entries of the Collie so low? And maybe ask the different clubs or the Collie Club of America. Just boycott them.
Can I raise another point, though? How many of you people in Collie clubs support your local all breeds with trophies, which then gives you an in to have a voice in who the judges are, so that we're not always just another breed? I mean, let's face it, you gotta play the game. And the game is they want support. They really want our entries.
So if you ask you.
No, the Collie Club can send out. You can. We're doing it now. We can't. All right, you have your specialty. You have some trophies left over. What better thing than to call your local all breed and say, "Gee, we'd like to support your next show, and we'll give you best of variety and best of opposite and best of winners." And incidentally, if you ever need a Collie judge, would you check with us? That's all.
That's a good idea.
Oh yes, they have a lot of knowledge. Let me tell you, having judged at a few all-breed judges and being at the dinner the night before for the judges, and somebody turns around and says, "And what do you judge?" And I say, "Collies." He says, "Isn't it a shame they've gone down so terribly?" And I can give you names attached to that too. But I said, "I don't think so," and I leave it at that. I mean, I'm going to start an argument. I only start an argument amongst my own people. But not there. And, well, there's so many all-breed judges. They go to school, and you can't learn it. You can't learn it. You either have it in you, and yes, you can learn it, but only from other Collie breeder or bearded Collie or Great Dane breeder. You don't. And each breed, there shouldn't be anything like an all-breed judge, because there is no judge that knows that much that they can tell you about all those breeds. They don't know all the final things. You have to live with them. You can't get that after 2 or 3 years. I mean, we have the system where it says, tomorrow I'll put in an application for such and such breed. No, it shouldn't work that way, but it does.
We love you, Edith, but your 2 minutes are up. I know her a long time. I can say it, yes.
What do those all-rounder judges say is wrong with Collies now? When they say they've gone down, what do they...
They move terribly because they don't know that they're not stretched out by you like a German Shepherd, which is not what a German Shepherd should look like coming from Germany in the first place. And they don't know that the dog, like I saw a pretty good dog today, and we are trying to convey to the girl, let him show himself, don't set him up. Collie is never going to be, shouldn't be set up. Move it forward. They don't know that. Walk a couple of steps, it sits down, let it go again, walk a couple of steps and let it set itself. A good dog sets itself up. It's not a retriever or a German short-haired pointer. They have to be set up. And you've seen the cartoons, and the minute that man lets the judge walks on and the door goes like that. Because
so it's mainly movement.
But ours are supposed to be on a loose lead, and that's a handicap. But you don't want to alter the standard, surely.
They're still following Collies on the normal movement that we want in Collies. They call it false. They call it bad movement.
That's right.
They look for exactly the opposite of what we want. And so they fault what we would call a good movement.
I'd like to go back to a step in Judie's question, because a lot of these people have well, not a lot. Some of the people on the panel have been around as long as I have, and mediocrity in the breed, it's a big improvement over what we had many years ago, where there was no question about what the top of the breed was. I mean, we don't see Roman noses in the breed, we don't see cowhawk, we don't see roachback. I mean, there are some people here who can remember back to seeing those in the breed ring. She's looking at you. There are a lot of liars up here too. But it's a question. I mean, there was a time when we had just a few dogs out that were quality, and the rest was really.
But we had
They
much
certainly have been
less.
improved.
We had much more competition. You had I came to a dog show maybe with 2 dogs. Jim came with 3, and then comes Mrs. Long with 5 or 6, or Mrs. Browning with 10. We had to fight a lot harder than anybody has to fight today.
We had to fight,
win.
that's right.
Right?
We had to fight,
Yeah,
that's
we had to
exactly
fight.
right.
That's all it is.
That's what it was a fight.
To walk around the dogs and look at them from the back too. Not one. Not one. That's where you have to look too, to form the overall picture. And it doesn't take much time, if you really know, and most you have to look at all of it. But if all you're interested in is showing the dog, you better buy nothing under 7, 8 months old. You don't buy
That's
6.
a good point too.
And then you are fairly sure. Now, years ago, I've never used her dogs at stud, but I admire them. Marcia Keller said to me, now that was years ago, that anything she doesn't want to keep, she sells for $150. Maybe today, let's say it's $300. The pet shops get $300 and $400. I don't think people that only have a few dogs are entitled to sell dogs for $1,000. Now, there was a girl here today who had a Sheltie, a friend. Now that's an 11-month-old Sheltie. I'm no great Sheltie expert, a small one, but I can see that puppy's going to win. And you don't buy a 2 or 3 months old. Never mind how good it is. When I used to go up to Poplar Kennels, and there were never less than 80 or 90 dogs there. And I said, what about this one? Mary used to say, I've got 13 points on her, 3 majors. I've been trying to show her for 2 years and I can't finish it. Now that is top breeders. Goes with the game, you have to expect it. Or you buy a ready-made champion and breed it yourself and learn it all yourself.
Okay.
But there's no such thing as a show prospect under 6, 7 months. There just isn't. There is a very nice puppy, that's all.
Okay, Tom, what's your answer? You sell show prospects?
I hardly sell any show prospects anymore. I would almost rather sell them as pets than hear from these people that take them and don't turn them out. You know, it's real disappointing to sell a really nice puppy and have it come back and look like someone else's dog, you know? And then the person wants you to be accountable for why doesn't it have enough bone or coat, or why doesn't it look like our puppies look, you know? So
Then there's another answer to it. We agreed very much watching. There was somebody in the ring. It was a beautiful blue puppy, and the dog just should win, but it belonged to somebody else. It didn't look thrifty. It's most probably full of worms. It most probably doesn't get fed the same way. That's an old expression of old breeders. A dog doesn't look thrifty. Has any of you heard it, that word, just that particular? That means, and a dog that isn't thrifty, if it's a bitch or a dog, if you can't make it look right, get rid of it. Some of them never get it. You can feed them anything. But there was a beautiful young blue dog. I wouldn't say he would have won everything, but better than he did, but the dog didn't look thrifty. The coat didn't look right, had a better color than it showed, and there's things lacking. There's a lot lacking in the people that buy the dogs. But I go along with what I keep, fine. See, the big kennels that had 100 dogs they can show, you go into a kennel like that, if it was Van Dyke, Mrs. Browning, Beresford, you want a puppy? What you want? 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12. They could show you 20 of each. And after you go there a few times, now that is a real pretty one. And I've done Mary Beresford, and I paid $300 for a dog 40 years ago, 42 years ago, and I brought it home. She came back 2 weeks later. Said, that dog isn't right, get rid of it. There was no such thing as giving the money back. Didn't look.
It
Am I
fell
right?
apart, right?
Jim, am I right?
That's the truth. That's absolutely the truth.
Doesn't look right anymore. They can change from that one day to the next. And here she had a bitch with 13.3 meters, and an expert couldn't finish it. What are you doing then?
Okay,
There must be
Janet.
dogs you can't finish, Tommy.
Never.
And good
We
ones.
don't admit it.
Oh my God.
He wouldn't be on this panel. He can finish it.
No, it gets a little
And
warm
you
up
know,
here
when it's
sometimes.
too easy, it's no good. Many
right.
years ago,
There's
I was
no
the
free lunch.
president of the Collie Club of Long Island. And
We did that? We've had bad years.
There's no
John,
free lunch.
Ken Goldfrapp says, come out to John Perry.
You've got to take it off.
And she said, Rose is trying so hard, she wants to get a good one. And it's always, I was looked at for reserve. That's the best she ever got to, I think. But she tried. So she said, why don't you go? I said, you're the president of the club. She was sick. Why don't you come? Well, he picked me up. We went out there. And he says, now she had about 5 or 6 dogs. Hector, right? And a couple or more. And he said, you've been lucky, she says. That is always, you're sure there's a certain amount of luck, but I'm not just lucky. And we start out, she says, well, how did you go to? She said, this is a bitch that I have 4 reserves on. And I want to breed her. And I want to get, what would you do? And the pedigree, you can breed anywhere in the country, you know. It doesn't make a difference because it's what we call a nice bitch. So I start from the beginning. It was my bitch, and that's the bitch I want to breed. Yes, I want to breed that bitch. I'd go up to Beresford, or I'd go up to Mrs. Browning, and let her tell you what to breed to. Because all the dogs look alike, right, Jim? Didn't they? They all looked alike, because they were linear. And then, if you want to take the litter, you take it up to her, and let her pick a puppy for you, because all she's looking for is another puppy. That was their living, don't forget. That was their living. They didn't have anything else. That was their living. Van Dyke, Beresford, and Tocalen Kennel, that was their living. That they didn't have any other way to make a
Van
living.
Dyke used to advertise a non-profit organization.
He also advertised the dog and stuff. And when I went to the dog and gave him $50, I said, people say that dog is sterile. He said, sure he is. I didn't promise you any puppies. I just promised you a puppy. And this, I didn't make up Gusto. What is it? The black dog of Van Dyke.
And he laughed all the way to the bank.
That's another thing he said. And we licked our wounds and tried again. He says you can breed to any of the other dogs. I said, I want to breed to a safe. I want to breed to a trial. Well, that's another story. Well, anyhow, here I'm sitting 50 miles from home. People say they go to Long Island and they think we all live next to each other. Well, we don't. It's 120 miles long and 40 miles wide. And it takes time to get there. And I talk for an hour, and I write it down for her now. If that was my bitch, that is who, there are 2 or 3 choices. And I don't know who it was. That's what I would breed. And when the time comes, you live 125 miles away, you go to them, and I'm sure you come up with better than what you have. What she had was good mediocrity. And after I talk for an hour, like I do here, the next thing I hear is the bitch is in season. So I said, Rose, what are you going to do with it? Well, this time I breed her to my own dog, but I think next time I follow your advice. And I said, and I still feel the same way.